Hello, everyone. Uta here with yet another immortality white iris. You'll notice that the buds are a little bit blue. And then I'm waiting for this Emery Paul dahlia to open. I'm going to put this behind me. You'll notice that I moved around my studio a bit so that you could see the woods out the window. Uh, way back there are some of my new beds for the dahlia bulbs. And here we have, I'm trying to get them in the sun. That's why I moved it around so that you could see these wonderful coreopsis with the way they are luminescent in the sunshine. So I have to turn around and put this back behind me. Okay, so I had a communication on the Genspect comments with Stella O'Malley, and she asked me if I have sent her my data because I made a comment about that I have the only data in the world on now 64 and growing trans widows, and that Emma Thompson, who was in Behind the Looking Glass, the daughter of an autogynephile, transsexual, whatever you want to call him, that she presented the data that I have on the children of, which involves around 35 kids, some of whom are not grown, so we don't know how it will play out for them as they get older. But the ones who are older, there is this rate of suicidal ideation, and which even if I suppose if I was counting it correctly, I would omit these young children who are 3-4 years old. And say that out of a group of, would be a very small cohort, but a group of, say, 22, that's 7 children of men who ideate a female persona expressed suicidal ideation, and of those 7, 4 had an attempt that caused them to be hospitalized after, and in 0 cases did any of the cross-dressing men even visit the child in the hospital, and most likely in 0 cases did the hospital note for any kind of data to be kept that there you can see my my iris, for no data to be kept about, why wouldn't the gender therapist that the cross-dressing husband is consulting with, why wouldn't that person urge him to do something to help his child who attempted to kill him or herself? I mean, there were 2 cases in Texas, 1 case in the UK, and at the moment I can't draw up where the 4th one was. There was 1 case in the state of Oregon, and then I haven't even gone into the self-harm. But of course, this is not the focus of Genspect. The focus of Genspect is the children who are being lured into this cult by the teachers at school, and who are themselves at a young age imagining that they should go through this so-called affirmative care process to so-called change sex. And let me remind you that, some of these guys are violent, like this dude who killed 3 women. Unfortunately, the state of New York really is responsible, because after he killed the first one, he was paroled, and then he killed the second one. After he killed the second one, after a few years, he was paroled again. And at the age of, I don't know, 82, he killed the third woman. This was in Brooklyn, not far from where I taught. So the whole violent tendencies of these guys, there, let me see if I can get the flowers. Just there. Okay, so this all is not spoken of at Genspect, and I suspect that it's not spoken of at Genspect because there are those who are part of the group that might be offended when the topic of the violent ones comes up. And then we have the case of Audrey Hale, a mass murderer who was probably lured through the gaming group of cross-sex ideators into this violent, if you want to call it, lifestyle. And of course, it took us really years to get information about this. And the reason for that, of course, is the thread of transsexualism that has been force-teamed into the Biden-Harris administration. And you can see that by the individuals, Sam Brinton, who, because he is a felony thief and not just a sexual fetishist into kink and sadomasochism, I guess, as well as Richard Rachel Levine, and the individuals, the cross-dressers, drag queen, Dylan Mulvaney, etc., invited to the White House. I mean, we can see the bias and the obedience to the group called Trans Journalists Association Style Guide. Now, I'm just not understanding why. I'm still trying to get that light in there. I'm still not understanding why Genspect is not bringing up this censorious tendency of the whole trans movement, which includes those that they consult to give validity to the whole idea of true trans. There we go. So I invited Stella O'Malley and her colleagues to come over here and look at my channel, and I also invited Stella O'Malley and her colleagues to go to Lime Soda Films YouTube channel and watch Behind the Looking Glass, and then watch the profile of Allison. And now coming up on Saturday is the profile of Abigail, both of whom are in my data. And their husbands were narcissistically abusive and caused them financial problems, and caused, certainly for Allison, her son said he didn't want to know why. His parents got divorced, and so Allison is, you know, this very intelligent scholar with a PhD who has been censored by her own son. Her son doesn't want to know anything about this, and apparently the father is just a secret cross-dresser. Looks like a pretty big guy who wouldn't pass out in public, but he actually developed two personae, and one of them is a girl. So, you know, Genspect, you're kind of stuck with the problems that are going on with the adults. And I also mentioned in my comment, I spent some time editing it to work it all in. I mentioned in my comment that I have the confused teens contacting me because of my developmental explorations of Piaget's stages of development, which should help the kids to get out of this trap, the trap in pink mist land of no boundaries. And I'm going to just mention here that I had a second cousin who, when I was in my 20s, she was in her 30s. She was about 8 years older than me. This was during the AIDS crisis. I was kind of going through a lot in terms of my dance teachers who, died of AIDS, and the grief I was dealing with over that. Ernest Pagnano, particularly, he was, kind of a mentor to me as far as technique, and it was really sad because he kept on teaching even when he was quite sick. And I remember when it was his memorial service, I didn't realize how many people were going to show up, so I didn't even I couldn't even fit in the church where he was being eulogized. So that was Ernest Pagnano. I don't know if any of the clips of his professional dance performances are out there. He had danced with Lara Lubavitch, which was a modern company that I also studied with Jerry Houlihan from that company. And okay, so yeah, my cousin Diane. So that really put me in my own little downward spiral with experiencing so much grief back in the middle 1980s. And what had happened was her brother, Eddie, a farmer, a dairy farmer, knew that her artist life out in New Mexico, where she painted Georgia O'Keeffe-like paintings of flowers and so on, that it wasn't going well. Apparently she had some kind of verbally abusive husband, and she was up there in northern Wisconsin, at the farm over the hill from where my father grew up. She was up there visiting Eddie, and Eddie knew that she was pretty suicidal, and he took her to the Dunn County facility, for people who are suicidal. And after they got out of the car, Diane got down on her knees and she said, "Eddie, please don't make me go there. They'll take me away from my art." She wanted to keep on painting, and she promised Eddie that she surely would never do this, and he couldn't force her to go there to the county institution. And she went back to New Mexico and ended her life. And Eddie had to live with that. The rest of us had to live with that. My father had to live with that. They got a double painting of hers and had it in their living room. And the thing is, Diane really just needed to stay with Eddie, but Eddie had to work. He had to get up and milk the cows and stuff. And so Diane also needed to learn some skills when she's feeling physically really lousy with deep, deep depression and feeling really hopeless, which involves movement. I think there was some other way, to get a group of people to be with her all the time. And I, for example, believe that this cluster of suicides in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, could have been prevented and that the Trevor Project and all those TQIA, Two Spirit Plus groups who amplify the suicidal ideation narrative are actually causing more suicides. And what I'd suggest to anybody who's in that area of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who saw the 15-year-old Braden Snyder die at the age, die. I don't know what her method was. The one who went to, as Theodora Cassidy, used carbon monoxide poisoning inside of a car. I believe that there's probably a person, most likely a sexual predator within that TQIAA plus club, who is a promoter of that and who actually wants a cluster like that so that he can claim, or she can claim, that, we all bully people who are confused about their identity. And the thing is, if there had been cases of bullying that was related to these 4 young people's deaths, that would have come out by now. So I really think that it's more likely that the bullying towards detransitioners and desisters by exactly the TQIAA, Two Spirit Plus movement is very much associated with those tragedies. So I'm looking forward to next week when I communicate again with Paul, who hasn't mentioned any suicidal anything. I haven't asked him about who he's attracted to or anything like that because I think he's 14 or 15 years old and it's not appropriate. So, this is my observation about Genspect. Oh my goodness. There's the ladybug. It's trying to get out. I'm going to rescue it. It's climbing the window and I can't get it for you right now. But don't worry. I found the ladybug and I'm going to release him or her. All right. So the thing is, we have to approach the suicidal narrative very, very differently. People who express this should not be spending a lot of time alone. People who express this need to work on techniques such as the motivational doc, stress reduction techniques, such as primal fitness movement systems, such as the Uta Hagen Movements for Wellness playlist. And I think what we have to do is maybe have people like me who had a bad moment on the Brooklyn Bridge at one point when it looked like Nettie was going to get about half of the time with our kids when he really should have had supervised visitation because he was sleeping in the same bed with our 5 and 8-year-old. And I thought about the diver who would have to recover my body. I thought about my parents who were still alive. I thought about my children who would experience the double tragedy of losing their father. And for me, I had the realization that, of course, Nettie would then say he's the children's mother. Because I know of a dude in Queens whose children are now in their 30s who did that when she wasn't able to talk herself down off the ledge. So we're going to get outside and plant those daffodils for next spring. Sorry for the heaviness of this, but, I invited Stella over here. And basically what I have to say contradicts most of what the 4 horsemen of the Pinkopolis have been saying and the very flawed and low subject number studies that they've been publishing for decades, meaning Ray Blanchard, Kenneth Zucker, J. Michael Bailey, and James Cantor, who, when I brought up my trans widows experiences study, James Cantor wrote, and then got, what do they call it? The ratioed. He got ratioed. A lot of dislikes on his statement to me, a trans widow. Not saying, gee, I'd like to, get in touch with you, find out your story. He said, well, if you go looking for something as malleable as feelings, you will surely find it. To which I responded, I'm not asking trans widows about their feelings. I'm asking them about the violence, the collusion with the therapists, promoting kink and role play in bed. And those guys are part of that because they call themselves sexologists and they think it's very sexy to be a sexologist. And they don't have a problem with kink. They don't have a problem with porn. Anyone like Genspect is going to have to separate a little bit from that generation. Yeah, you're going to have to do that. Good luck.